Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Doc Rodden, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-hosts, Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, and I will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. With me this week are my co-hosts, starting off with Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just so you know, Dad gets around.
Dad gets...
Could you not hear me?
No, we could.
We could. Okay. Yeah. Is there a reason why we shouldn't have heard you?
I thought something, whatever I said was so stupefyingly ridiculous that you
couldn't
respond.
You actually, your energy though at first was like, Jeff, and then you got into it. So I was like, oh God, you're really into this. Really excited about doing this one.
All right. That voice you hear is our co-host, Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm good. It's week till Halloween, so I'm pretty excited. This is my good time. That is great. It is 1 week as we're recording to Halloween. Yay!
The holiday season is upon us, and then we have to start the countdown all over again, and that's so sad.
Yeah.
All right. Also joining us, rounding out the crew, is my co-host over at H&R, Dave Dreher. Dave, how you doing?
I'm good. How's everybody? Seems like we haven't talked in a while. Why is that?
I know it does. Why? I don't know.
I don't know.
We do this every week. How do you mean?
I know it does feel like that.
It seems like it's been longer than a week this time.
It might have been by 24 whole hours.
24 hours. Yep.
Yeah, but this week has been long for me. Maybe that's what it is.
Must be it.
All right. Well, we do have a pair of films to review. I think we have a pair of good films to review, or at least we're going to have a good time reviewing them. We have Wounds, which is currently available on Hulu from director Babak Anvari, and we have Eli, currently on Netflix from Ciaran Foy. So these two films each have a history. We'll get into those, and they each have a surprise for us toward the end, and we will debate on how those endings add up, size up,
and measure up.
Ooh.
All
Nice.
right. That's what we do every week, two films, and let's dive in. First up is Wounds from director Babak Anvari. The cast includes Armie Hammer, Zazie Beetz, and Dakota Johnson. And like I said, it was currently available on Hulu. And the synopsis goes as follows. Disturbing and mysterious things begin to happen to a bartender in New Orleans after he picks up a phone left behind at his bar. Yes, mysterious and disturbing is accurate.
That works.
And yes, for those wondering, it does involve wounds.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing. So we are going to tackle these. Who am I going to pick? Usually we do this before the show.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm playing, eeny, meeny in my head. And Crystal Cleveland, you are up first. You did? Did you know?
I just knew.
What is your first? What's your first impression of Wounds?
I really didn't know much about this movie going in at all. I just knew, okay, finds a phone. Some weird stuff's going to go down. Okay, whatever. But then I started watching this movie, and the more and more I was watching it, the more I started loving it, because it's almost like you're watching a descent into madness. And I love those sort of films. And I guess at a point you kind of go, is he imagining it? No, he can't be imagining it, because the other people are experiencing this as well. And then there's a lot of creepy stuff that goes on with the phone. And so you think, is that just real, or is it Memorex? I think this movie is not incredibly fast-paced, but it's not slow as well. Like, there were a few moments in the beginning where I was like, oh, what's going to be happening here? Is this any good? And then I don't know, somewhere along the way, I fell in love with his character. He's a horrible person, mind you. Like, he kind of appears at first glance to be a good guy, but then you see that he's very disconnected from his relationship with his girlfriend, and he is, well, kind of a lech, hitting on other women and stuff like that. And then you can kind of see where these quote unquote wounds allow, I guess, something else in. I guess like a wound would let an infection, bacteria in. It's kind of that sort of same thing. Basically, I guess I can say a little bit more. There's some clearly, I guess, underage kids that come into the bar, and there's the that leave the phone, and they come into play very little throughout it. But one of the things that is said in a dreamscape kind of thing is that they opened a portal, apparently, to some other world, and it's chosen this guy. And so, I don't know, I think the movie was very, very, very interesting and very spooky, and it had some good scares, and the ending is very strange. I'll give you that. I would have liked to have seen more, to be honest with you. I feel like we kind of got the shaft. But yeah, basically I liked it. There we go. Yeah.
The ending may have left a wound.
Yeah, I really, the ending is the one thing that kept me from probably really liking it, because just when you really get into some really weird stuff, it kind of cuts you off. But
fade to black. What?
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
All right, one of those tricky little bastard things. All right, Jeff Mohr, sir, what is your first impression of Wounds?
Well, my first impression was not good. I think maybe I was nodding off or something, because it made no sense to me at all. And as Crystal said, I think it's, I don't know that I want to call it a slow burn, but there's not a lot of action. I mean, there's progression in the story, but there's not a lot of action. And you kind of got to be paying attention to some of the little stuff to see what's progressing. And I saw a couple of you guys make favorable comments on a chat. And so I said, well, I got to watch this again, because I was really looking forward to this, because I really liked the director's last movie, Under the Shadows. Was one of my favorites from 2016. And so I was looking forward to seeing this. On the second run through, for some reason, it made a whole lot more sense. I was totally zoned in. So I think it was just a bad concentration day or something. But yeah, if you're just going to go in and watch this, if you got this playing in the background, you're not going to know what the hell's going on, I don't think. Even though there are some captivating scenes, even then. I like Armie Hammer. And I think he's I haven't seen a ton of his stuff, but the three things I've seen him in, he's an entirely different character in each of them, and does a really, you don't almost don't recognize him. Man from U.N.C.L.E. and I guess I did see Nocturnal Animals, and Free Fire are the ones that he just seems totally different. But at this one, he does play kind of he seems like a nice guy at the beginning, but I don't know if it's because of what's going on. He kind of gets infected by this phone that these kids leave behind after a bar fight that's particularly violent. And things just start going awry from there. And it ends up moving to his girlfriend, played by Dakota Johnson, Carrie. And he keeps hitting on Zazie Bates. That's she's obviously, she's right there with her boyfriend, but he's pretty obviously hitting on her. And then tries to find ways to get her alone, and then says things like, my girlfriend doesn't matter, but yet that's a little bit later in the story. So this could be partially affected by what's going on with him. So, yeah, I've said a lot in the past that I like WTF movies, and this is a WTF movie right up to the final scene. Also like the guy that played Eric, Brad William Henke. He's awesome. I remember him playing a one of the backwoods guys on Justified, the show with Timothy Olyphant a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I think I'll stop there without going too much farther into it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Brad William Henke, who plays Eric, who is he's just this big burly guy who basically starts the fight that kind of sets things in motion with when everybody has to skedaddle. I'm glad you mentioned it as I pass this on to Dave, because he has been cast as Tom Cullen in The Stand. So, Dave.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. What does that mean?
I love him.
What does that mean? MOON.
There you go. That's what I was fishing for. All right.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't ever picture Tom Cullen as that burly of a dude, but we'll give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. See what happens. Can't hurt nothing, I guess. But he was good. This guy is good in this, because I mean he's kind of in a way rather pivotal to the story.
Yeah.
So it worked out good. I knew nothing about wounds. I didn't even know wounds existed. It wasn't even on my radar in any way, shape, or form. When you said it was wounds and it was on Hulu, I'm like, what? What the hell is that? But I really like this a lot. I have not been a fan of Armie Hammer in the past. I was always kind of trying to figure out what everybody's seen in him. But this was a good role for him. I liked this a lot. I liked everything his character went through. Like I said, he seemed like a good guy that just kind of had a sleazy side. He could kind of play it both ways. I mean, he really does seem to care for the people that, in his life that he loves. Just like him going up to check on Hank after the fight and everything, and going up there and kind of coddling him for a while. So I don't know. I just kind of like the whole scope of what he was going through, and I really enjoyed the overall thing. When they did the cell phone thing, I'm like, oh Christ, really? We're gonna do like a ring thing?
Yeah, it seems stupider than it really was, right?
But what's?
I'm totally with you. I was like, oh god, yeah.
Yeah, but once Dakota Johnson got in, and we start kind of seeing this other. I don't know what the hell would you want to call it? Kind of
the tunnel that she's watching on the screen. Yeah,
the kind of astral weird. I don't know what the hell that was supposed to be, but and we really never really do find out unless I missed it or it went over my head. But I was okay with that. It was good. It held my attention. Crystal, you'd mentioned it was kind of kind of started off as a slow burn, but right when it needed to pick up, it picked up, and then it just stayed interesting the rest of the way through. So. Yeah, this was a pleasant surprise for me.
A pleasant surprise.
Let me insert, too, that there's a Joseph Conrad quote from Heart of Darkness at the beginning that gives you a definite slant into what's going on. And then there's some things that happen with a book, too, that and a website that they're looking at that helps explain things, I think, or give me a vague idea what's going on.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us?
Well, I don't want to give anything away. I'm not sure I could go. But the portals was about connecting with other people that could help you increase these other entities that could help you increase your empower you and enhance your.
Right. They kind of felt by opening these wounds, you opened yourself to other people and experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. Other influences.
Yeah.
But also otherworldly entities.
Right. Yeah. Other dimensions, basically, almost.
Yeah. I think Eric had one hiding in him, didn't he? Well, we'll get there.
Yes.
We'll get there. All right. You know what else I see in Armie Hammer?
What?
I see a lot of Henry Cavill. I cannot tell
what?
you.
Yeah, I've seen that. And also, who's that? Clive Owen, too. I see like a ton of Clive Owen.
Oh, my God, Clive Owen.
Yeah. Isn't that his name, Clive Owen? Is that his name? Who's the guy from...
Younger Clive Owen. But...
No, who's the guy? I'm getting the name right. Who's the guy from Shoot 'em Up? He's a Clive something. Damn, I can't remember his name.
Shoot 'em Up.
The movie Shoot 'em Up. You've never seen Shoot 'em Up?
Oh, I'm certain I have.
Yeah, well, what's the guy's name? Clive something.
It's Clive Owen. You're talking Clive Owen.
Okay. He's talking about. He kind of reminded me of Clive Owen.
Henry Cavill played Napoleon Solo, and Armie Hammer played
He is not like Henry Cavill. Not at all. Not at all. And let me tell you, but maybe that's just because I love Henry Cavill more than anything. Oh my God!
If you're blind in one eye and close the other, it looks just like.
Yes.
My first impression of Wounds, had heard about this because it had played in a number of festivals, and Jeff and I think you and I had talked about this film. And when we found out it was coming on, you were, this was. I
was excited.
This was on your radar to make sure it got on the list when it got available. So that's what happened. And I love the cast. Armie Hammer, like you said, not usually the person that I, want to watch, but I love Zazie Beetz. And Dakota Johnson is growing on me. At first,
yeah,
I didn't really care for her, but this performance and the performance of Speary and some others has changed my mind about her. And of course, I didn't know anything about Brad William Henke until this, but now I do because his Eric is. They needed more of him in this film because his character I thought was the most complex.
Yes,
and we get the least of him, right? So. But, it is what it is. I was fascinated by this movie. It caught my attention and kept me wondering what the hell's going on. It felt like it was spiraling out of control, and that was fascinating to watch this guy named Will, played by Armie Hammer, to, navigate his way through and battle the influences and his own bad judgment. At least that's what I felt, that it was his own bad judgment that he was just, running with. And then the end. And I'm going to confess, the ending pissed me off.
Uh-huh.
When it faded to black, I was like, get out of here.
Uh-huh.
Come on. Although, looking back at it, I still kind of like the movie, but damn that ending. Damn that ending. Oh, me. Just when it was getting, insanely good, right? It's like, okay, now
I like the ending.
Here it comes. Fade to black.
Yeah, see, that's exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm right there with you.
Did you see what was going on behind the cricket or behind the cockroaches?
Well, yeah, but still,
Okay.
I wanted more.
it was just like when you're getting it on, somebody knocks on the door.
Yeah, it's like you lost.
I was right there.
Basically, they covered the money shot. They covered the money
I don't think
shot.
I don't think I want to know
Totally.
what you were doing while you were watching this movie, Doc. It's kind of disturbing.
Keep that to yourself. Give it to yourself, Dave.
The cockroaches. are the thing.
Cockroaches. Cockroach.
You never cover the money shot.
No,
Nope.
but they did.
Maybe they just ran out of money. Shit, we can't do the money shot. Damn it. It just fade to black. What the hell?
Actually, that's fair. Really, yeah.
Hey, I mean, you make your choice, and that's what they did. But I have a question, and I'm going to throw it to you, Crystal.
Okay.
Since you like Armie Hammer, and Armie Hammer is not in any way Henry Cavill, did his character Will have an arc? Did he have an arc in this story?
I don't know that he actually had an arc, but he definitely had serious character development. And I didn't feel like we were lacking anything. I don't feel like he transitioned. I think that's who he was. And it just brought forth more of his personality. Because at first, if you kind of watch, at first he seems like a really, really good guy. Even though he's flirting with the girl at the bar, I didn't take that as him doing anything other than just harmless flirting like a bartender would do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's kind of natural, really. So I didn't think he actually really had an attraction to her at first. And then you see him with his girlfriend, and I'm like, okay, no, he was being honest with her about the phone. He seemed to genuinely care about her. But then he went into this descent, as like I said before, and I just feel like it's more of his character coming out. I feel like his inhibitions were lowered, if that makes sense. It's almost like someone who's drank too much. They just kind of go and do whatever the hell they want. He became obsessive of the patron, the girl, and that was kind of weird. For me, I feel like that was maybe out of his character just a bit naturally, but I think that was just, I mean, are we going to talk about, I guess this is maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but I think, he was clearly possessed. It chose him as the host. So I think that was really what that was. It was really more about him becoming, and it was bringing out the worst parts of him. Amplifying all of that stuff or whatever they had going on inside. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it seemed like to me. He's charming. He was a charming dude. I mean, he's very likable, but he's not Henry Cavill. That's all I'm saying.
Not Henry Cavill. All right, so cockroaches do play a big part in this film. They show up everywhere. In the car, that was the creepiest time.
And you know what I wonder about that is like in some things like they say like cockroaches are kind of otherworldly. I don't know if you've heard like conspiracy theories about that. I think that's what that's playing into, like that they're kind of like a conduit of that sort of stuff, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it's random and weird, and I kind of liked it. And cockroaches are really kind of gross.
Are they aliens living among us? Is that what it is?
Oh, maybe spooky.
I'm like, who are these guys? All right. What do you think, Jeff? What do you think, especially like when they started obsessing? Are you on board with this, or are the cockroaches his fear?
I guess I thought he did have an arc, and I thought he did a great job of acting, because if you look at the beginning, he's a guy in command of his environment, right? Even this fight breaks out, and he's not, things get frantic and wild, but he's not all that shook. It's what happens in bars. But when he sees what's on the phone at one point is when he kind of freaks out. And then from that point on, he goes through periods of anxiety and anger and fear. And I really thought that his reaching out for Alicia, the Zazie Bates character, was him grasping for some piece of reality, because his girlfriend was going down the rabbit hole too. That she has a sort of a short conversation with him that's pretty freaky, and when he catches her out on the computer. So, where's he supposed to go? What's he supposed to do? But at the same time, he kind of pushes off his cop friends. He alienates his boss. He just keeps doing crap like that. So
that's why I wonder: is that in him? Is he just a jerk? It's interesting.
It's either his reaction to what's going on with him, or a combination of his reaction and what's going on with him. I just think it leads him to do that. He's got all that thing going on with his armpit. He wears the same damn shirt. So, I mean, God. And then he's drinking like a fish. Every time he turns around, he's grabbing a bottle and chugging it. And I think it's just because he's so at unease that he doesn't know what to do. Maybe that, I don't know. That's just the way I took it. That you guys talked about it earlier. He's spiraling out of control.
But he still through it all has this weird connection with Eric. Dave, there's not terribly. I mean, there are special effects to this.
A little bit,
especially with Will, but with Eric, holy cow!
Yeah, the beer bottle to the face. Yeah,
he gets a beer bottle early in the movie to the face, and it's a gash, open wound, right?
Yeah,
and, which plays throughout the movie, right up to the very last frame. And was this an effective piece of work, or could you see through the seams?
No, I thought I see what you did there. No, I thought it was very effective, and really, this film didn't really require a lot of gore, a lot of makeup effects. It was more of a cerebral horror going on here this time, and I think it played perfectly. I think a lot of blood and gore would have actually taken away from the dilemma that our lead guy was going through. I liked Armie Hammer in this a lot. I really did. I liked the character a lot. I got a vibe that he was kind of a good guy that had a lot of potential to being much better than he was, but was just comfortable with being this mediocre bartender guy. He was okay with that. He liked those people. He liked hanging with them. That he was, and his world was turned upside down when he picked up this phone and all this weird shit started happening. And then that weird shit started affecting him adversely. And then when it starts affecting his girlfriend, he started reaching out to his old girlfriend, because I thought it was kind of nice that he was able to have that relationship, earlier in the film. It obviously spirals down to madness there at the end, but with the very first couple scenes there, I mean, they're chumming around pretty good, but until the fight breaks out. So I don't. It all just seemed very real to me. I had no problem believing that he was that man. He was that person.
Yeah, poor Eric. Poor Eric. One last question before we wrap this up, Crystal. He being Will walks in to find his live-in girlfriend, Carrie, Dakota Johnson, at the computer and totally out of it. This is after he receives this very creepy message with a figure sitting on the bed, and a message that they're there, right? But when he gets there, she's in a she's in a catatonic state, right?
Yeah.
And even to the point where she's pissed herself all over the floor. What did you make of that and the scenes that follow? What was happening with her? What did you?
I definitely feel like I don't think that she was necessarily possessed by the same entity as him. I think we're referring to multiple entities, honestly. I think one of them chose him, like the dream said, which is like one of my favorite scenes, actually. It's really crazy cool. And then something else got to her, I feel like, because she was kind of different from him. She just seemed to be just utterly consumed by it. He still seemed more in control. Even toward the end, he almost seemed like he gave into it and enjoyed it. Like at the end, he seemed like he was happy. He's like, change me. You remember like he I think maybe he just wanted it as well. I don't know. I don't feel like he was happy with who he was. I think he did seem to be a little unhappy because I think he didn't feel successful.
Right. Well, he said that early on, right? When he was talking about he had dropped out of school and became a bartender and it felt like his life was going nowhere. So but he did it in an offhanded way when he was talking to Alicia at the bars because she was getting ready because they were studying, right? Her boyfriend was studying, Jeffrey, right? Now, Eric possessed too? Because the phone did end up in his possession too.
That's interesting. He didn't seem like he was because he was so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
He said, they're going to kill you, or is that what he said? You tell me they were going to kill him. Right. Or him, I don't know. He seemed like he was actually because he was just the most real. I could do a total study on this if I were again because I do find it interesting that he seemed the most unchanged. Honestly, so he still seemed like the same person as the person who got into that horrible fight. Because he was just a dick the whole time.
Yeah, but he just turned into a vegetable in the bed.
Well, he lost his masculinity, right? He wasn't that. Masculinity is not the right word, but when he's in that bar, he's
like a hard ass.
Yeah, but he was kind of a little bit of a wimp in his own apartment. Of course, he was trying to recover from that horrible.
I wonder if he and Carrie weren't kind of in the same boat.
Are they just bystander? Are they just victims?
Well, they're like the fodder, maybe for the, and because he says at one point, Will says, "I'm moving out, so you'll be safe," and she gets mad at him, like, "You're going to leave me here alone." But I think he felt like something was going to happen to her if they stayed together, and maybe it would have been him. What if the same thing would have happened with her as happened with Eric?
Yeah, because he had the wound. Did she have a wound?
No,
no, not yet.
Yeah. But I don't understand his wound on his armpit.
It for sure. I think they just called it wound because it sounds weird, and it does. And the one big ass wound at the end. Although, what the hell happened? What he was doing? What was he doing? Tell me, Jeff. Enlighten me. I know you know, Jeff.
I thought it looked like he was sucking his insides out.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's definitely some kind of suction thing going on there.
Spoiler alert.
Well, what's that? Spoiler alert.
Well, I said spoiler, and then I talked about the possession. Because then it was because I don't think it really is obvious that it's possession. And
no, I thought it was like he was, it's one of those ones where unless we see an interview with the director, we're probably not going to know exactly what he intended. But for me, it was that, what does Eric say to him? The last thing Eric says is, no, please, what does he say? Let me live, or don't take me, or something like that. Or
I don't know. You're the one who saw it twice. You tell me.
Well,
I don't remember. I don't
You
remember.
didn't hear him.
saying anything.
Yeah, no, that's what he said to Will when Will was over there. And he was freaking out, right? When Will, what did he do? Leave the phone on?
Well, spoilers. Is there some kind of Cthulhu in him or something? What was in there? Did I see an eyeball?
What? Oh, I thought that was just Eric's eye. That's what I thought.
Oh.
I thought because he took his face. That's what he was.
I thought he was looking. I thought he was looking in the wound.
He was sucking up.
I think he was taking his face. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought there was something came out of it. That's what I saw, but
I'm like, what the fuck?
So you guys didn't hear Eric when Eric was literally like writhing on the bed while Will was leaning over him, and I forget, did he have the phone on and all that weird noise coming out of it?
Yes.
In the last scene, yeah, and Eric is saying something to him like, "Please, don't kill me or don't take me," or something like that. He says that a couple times to Will.
Okay.
While he's grimacing and sort of thrashing there.
Before he goes all life force on him.
Pretty much.
All right. Well, let's end it there.
Life force with cockroaches.
Greatest vampire movie in space.
Yes. Maybe this was a vampire movie. We just didn't know it.
Maybe we didn't catch on.
All right. We'll have to have a part 2 in a couple weeks. No, not going to happen. But Crystal, let's wrap things up. What was your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene?
Final thoughts. I liked it. I thought it was a cool movie. I think it has some interesting tones and some really weird things going on. I think it's like I actually am probably going to watch this again on my own just to kind of get a better idea of what happened. I think watching it again would make it much more clear. I'm going to give this movie a 3.5. And I was going back and forth if you can't tell. And my favorite scene is the video of the severed head. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was fun.
I'm assuming the one that moves.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, there's because that's the video. That's actually the video.
Oh, okay, you're right. The other one's a picture. Yeah.
Yuck. Well, what's in it? We don't want to know. All right, Jeffrey. What is your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene for Wounds?
So, I told you I watched this twice.
You did?
And I originally wrote down 1.5.
Oh, my Lord.
And
wow.
I watched on the second time. Now, the second time around, I really got into it. And I was like pausing everything, trying to read stuff, read the text on the phones and look at what was on the computer screen and rewinding it and looking at the tunnel and just really getting into it. The acting I thought was great, and the story is just bizarro, which I could see that the same director made this as made Under the Shadows, but I also can see that he's progressing. It's not just the same thing over again. So this time around, I'm giving this a 4.
Wow, that's a huge jump. Holy shit.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, it is. And I think I've talked about this before, but there's some movies, it just, for me anyway, it really depends on what kind of mood I'm in. I mean, I love silent films, but there's sometimes I can turn on a silent film and I'm like, in 5 minutes, I'm going, nah, I don't want to concentrate this much, I want to be told something. I don't want to figure it out. But movies like this, if I'm in the right mood, I just love them. And this is one I really got into once I got my head right. And let's see, favorite scene. This is going to be kind of weird. I'd love to pick one of these violent ones, the finale, the Eric's fight. But I'm going to pick one where they're having a conversation. Well, first off, if you notice, the very first breakfast scene between Will and Carrie is a very structured, solid breakfast, right? They make some eggs and some bacon, and she's got orange juice out there, and there's some milk. There's a bunch of stuff on the table, and it just looks really organized and well done. And then after this thing starts to enter their life, they're just like lounging on a chair eating cereal, and there's nothing on the table. Everything is kind of haphazard, lackadaisical. And she's getting ready to I think to go to work. And she says something to him like, people are weird. You don't really know. All we ever see is the outside. We don't know what they're like on the inside. And on the inside, they're just worms. Full of worms.
Yeah.
And that line gave me the chills for some reason when she said that, because that told me a lot more about where she was at than anything else in terms of in this process, I guess. So that was it.
All right, that's on the box from Jeff Mohr. Wounds is full of worms. All right.
Yes. There's wounds. There's worms. There's cockroaches.
Dave Dreher, what's your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene for Wounds?
I'm going to kind of mirror both of our proteges here. I'm going to give this one a 3.5 as well. I enjoyed this movie completely. Now that hearing us talk about it, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it a second time as well. Because honestly, I didn't put that much thought into what I was watching before. It just kind of held my attention. I wasn't really getting in too much into the whole metaphysical, what does it all mean? But now I'd kind of like to watch it and maybe soak a little bit of that up. But it's an enjoyable watch. It really is. I'm trying to think, favorite scene. Favorite scene's a tough one for this one, but I think, and I'm going to get it wrong here. Maybe you guys can help me remember. But when he finds the phone, and he's texting back and forth with whoever it is on the other end. I can't remember the person's name. Garrett. Yeah, he's texting back and forth. But then it rings, or he calls at some point, and the voice on the other line says, like, it's yours now, or this is your. They basically tell him. This is your problem now. Yeah, basically that's it. And you knew right from that minute that he was just like, fucked. It's over. It's done. And I just like that. I wasn't expecting that because we were getting the texting and stuff first. And I wasn't expecting, because really everything kind of turns right then where he realizes that he's fucked and we realize that he's fucked. All at the same moment, and I enjoyed that. And again, it drew me deeper into the story, and it really is from that point, because after that is when he goes up to check on Eric, and then it all just kind of goes to hell quick. So I'm going to use that as a favorite scene.
I like that.
Cool.
I thought this movie looks great. It held my attention throughout. The cast is phenomenal. I loved Armie Hammer, Zazie Beetz, Dakota Johnson, and the rest. I liked the setting. I liked how it felt kind of is grungy the right way? Maybe not.
Yeah, it is kind of grungy.
Yeah,
but
it feels dirt. It definitely feels dirty because look at those homes. Ugh.
Yeah, it's definitely not upper class.
No.
It might not even be middle class. But it's it felt the life, it felt real, right? It felt like this was a life that these characters were living, and it didn't feel manufactured and fake. So I was really into it, and and then you threw this crazy angle into it, and you watch them go out, spiral out of control, and I was fascinated. Then the ending happened, and I was pissed off. So I'm frustrated with this.
No, I'm with you. That's why it got a 3.5, because I think it would have been higher.
Right. It would have been higher for me too. So I can only give it a 3. But that's still good. That's still a watchable film. Anything really over 2.5 is worth watching. So this is definitely a film I would recommend, with the caveat that, man, this thing needed just 2 more minutes. Just 2 more minutes. Just do a little something. But it got me thinking. So I don't know. It didn't really. It needed something. My favorite scene. Wow, Dave, you led right into it. Is when he goes up to Eric for the first time after the accident, after the wound, and his reaction to it was like, "Oh my god, dude! Yes, I can see your throat. I can see your teeth. I can see inside your mouth.
I can see your jaw moving or something."
Yeah. And it was like, "Oh my god!" It was. I don't know. It just like. It started kind of illustrating where this story was going to go graphically, and and all the weirdness that was happening, and it started building other relationships, because then you started feeling that you got a better understanding of the relationship between him and Eric, and it felt like like this guy might have been Eric's only true friend, and because he lived above the bar, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really like that, and that was more of a character moment, but yet it still had that graphic whoa to it, right? And it had a lot of exposition there too, but it was handled nice. So I like that particular scene. There was a lot of cockroach scenes I could have chosen as well. It seemed like every time cockroaches showed up, shit hit the fan. All right, well, there's our review for Wounds, which is currently playing on Hulu, so you can check that out. The cast includes Armie Hammer as Leslie Beats, Dakota Johnson, and is directed by Babak Anvari. Up next is a movie called Eli. This is available now on Netflix. It's from Ciaran Foy, and the cast includes Charlie Shotwell, Lily Taylor, Sadie Sink, and Kelly Riley. Sadie Sink, I should say, not Sadie. Sadie Sink. Sadie Sink. Sad Sack. Sadie Sink is.
Wait.
I know. I'm just
Sad Sack.
Most people know her now from Stranger Things. So she's
as Max.
Yes, and she's in this movie, and she's really good. So we'll talk about that. Eli had an interesting trip to Netflix. It was originally who was the original one? It wasn't Paramount.
Paramount.
It was Paramount. Yeah. And they didn't know what to do with it. It was originally going to come out this past January, and they ended up punting and selling it to Netflix. And Netflix put it out here. And that, is usually a cause for pause, right? Like, but I don't know. I think Paramount dropped the ball on this one, but we'll find out what the rest of everybody else thinks here. But first, the synopsis. A boy receiving treatment for his autoimmune disorder discovers that the house he's living in isn't as safe as he thought. Yes, this is Boy in the Bubble Gets Haunted. Or at least so we thought.
Boy in the haunted bubble.
Boy in the haunted bubble. Oh, that's even better. Yes, and his name is Eli. So let's find out. Dave Dreher, what was your first impression of Eli?
Again, another one I went into totally blind, and given what it turns out to be, that's probably a good thing. But yeah, I really like this. I mean, this boy, he has got a serious allergic reaction. This dude, he like flat out almost ignites when anything touches him, and he is in fact living in a bubble. He's got a little suit that he wears when he's out and about walking around. So, right away you kind of like this kid right from the get go. He's wonderfully portrayed. This poor guy in this like living basically in total isolation except for his mother and father. That's about kind of all he knows. But they're making the trip to this institute where this lady is a doctor is supposedly having wonderful, wonderful results from this treatment. And he's being guaranteed that he's going to be cured. So they show up at this place and he's able to get out of his bubble and kind of roam freely through the house. But Doc, the house is not what it seems to be. There are nefarious things afoot.
Nefarious is a great way.
We don't want to give away any spoilers yet, but at about the 3/4 mark, this movie takes a sharp right-hand turn and becomes something totally different. And you know what? It does it rather brilliantly, actually. It earned my respect, even though it veered into territory that I generally kind of shy away from. This one held me, and even after I knew what it was, I couldn't stop watching. I had to see the resolution, and I'm glad I did because it's got a very interesting resolution.
It does. Very 70s kind of resolution.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Speaking of the 70s, Jeff Mohr, do you remember the Boy in the Plastic Bubble TV show?
Yes, I do. John
Travolta.
John Travolta. That's where I was going with that.
It was a TV show?
Yeah, it was a TV movie.
It was a made-for-TV movie. Yeah.
Yes, and it was just before he did Saturday Night Fever and Grease. He's got nothing on Eli. I'm just saying. Jeff, what was your first impression of Eli?
I had no real knowledge of this going into it. I kind of got the Boy in the Bubble thing, I think maybe from the trailer or pictures or something. But looking at this, I really like this. It's got a great cast, and there's definitely some horror creds here. Everybody knows Lily Palmer. I think from Conjuring and some
Lily
other
Taylor.
things.
Lily Taylor.
Did I say? What did I say?
You said
Lily
Palmer.
Conrad, or Palmer. Okay, yeah.
Lily Johnson.
Taylor. Okay.
Just don't say Lily.
Everybody knows Darling Lil from. Everybody knows Lily Taylor from films like The Conjuring and The Nun and even Leatherface.
Oh. Mm.
The Haunting. She was in The Haunting. Wasn't she in The Haunting?
Yeah, she was the remake. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well,
Thanks
I didn't
for
mention
bringing
that
that
one.
up.
I didn't mention that one on purpose. So, and then the director, Ciaran Foy, did Sinister 2 and The Citadel. I don't know if you guys see that. 2012, the guy was in the like high rise. Anyway, it was a pretty good movie. And the writers, David Chirchirillo, was co-writer for Cheap Thrills.
What we like. Yeah,
I like Cheap. Cheap Thrills was good. I enjoyed it.
And then Ian Goldberg and Richard Niang co-wrote Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Ooh, which we liked.
I like that one too.
Yeah, these three guys were co-writers. So as I went through this, and I ended up watching this one twice as well, because after learning the twist and going back through this is really well written in the way there are some foretellings that I don't know. Crystal probably saw. She always sees them before I see them. But there were some foretellings that I don't think we really knew what it meant at the time that we saw or heard them. But they stay consistent with and faithful to where the story's going. So I enjoyed this a lot, and I thought that kid was awesome. Charlie Shotwell as Eli just was. As much emotional stuff he had to go through, I thought he was really good at that. For me, it didn't get old. And then his mother, Kelly Riley, who was also in Eden Lake with Michael Fassbender from 2008. And I like the guy that played the father. There was a show I watched a decade or so ago called The Unit. He played like a sergeant in this special military unit that flew around the world doing stuff. But he was I like him, and I don't see him that often, and I thought he did a good job in this.
Yeah, let's just say his name, Max Martini.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. What a name.
Max
Wow.
Martini, yes.
Yeah.
He was in The
La, la.
Order, which is on Netflix. He was in The Purge, the first season.
The Purge.
And and he was one of the guys in what is that? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the film all of a sudden. What is it? Pacific Rim, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was the father with the father-son
Yes.
scene. Yes. Okay.
I
knew him. He's one of those faces. Like I've seen him before, but I didn't know.
I like him. He's very competent,
too, right? Yeah.
and he does a good job here, I think, in doing the nuances of what we don't necessarily know about the story and staying consistent to that. So, anyway, at this point, I think I shall stop.
Mhm.
All right, sounds like a favorable.
Yes,
favorable.
I
first
liked it.
impression.
I liked it a lot.
Crystal Cleveland, what is your first impression of Eli?
So I loved this movie, actually. I probably liked it more than any of y'all. I love supernatural, and I love devil movies. They're my favorite. So like The Omen, I love. See, I'm quite opposite of Dave. Like, I love possession movies. I think they're super creepy, and the story here is definitely it's not a sleeper. It's not slow. I mean, it has action all the way throughout, but it creeps up on you. They definitely make it difficult to determine where the story is going, but it makes sense as to where it goes. So it's like, oh, okay, that's acceptable. You're not going to be like, that's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense, because it does make sense. It just kind of makes you think you're kind of going one way and you're kind of going another. But everything that happened still worked out and made sense. I think that the ghosts, quote unquote ghosts, which they still were ghosts, I guess, were very effective and creepy. And normally sometimes that stuff really doesn't get to me, but I think they used the demonic eyes, the red eyes for the ghosts, and I don't know, it kind of worked for me in this regard. They had some like contorted fingers that I thought were kind of new and interesting. I think you almost had side of also feeling claustrophobic, because even though he's not in his suit or in his quote unquote bubble type state, he's still trapped in a home. The home is supposedly decontaminated, which I'm sure it is, or it's not. But that's really, is it or isn't it? You don't really find out until later, as far as like, what's going on with him. But everything makes sense. His reactions to things, the stress of everything, his skin getting red and burning, and kind of like, and there's a lot of like context clues as to what's going to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean you completely can figure it out, but it does make sense. The father mentions at a point about how I've always been faithful. So, there you get the idea that of course the wife had an affair at some point of some sort. You can definitely tell the father is detached from the son. There's quite a bit that goes on with this movie. The doctor and the nurses, they're true to their roles. They're sympathetic to a degree, but they're also kind of hard and hardened in their roles. They avoid a lot of questions and a lot of answering things so that they don't have to lie. The home is beautiful. The scenery is great. I mean, it's basically like, the road in one location. So it's well played, smart. Sadie practically seems like the same character from Stranger Things, to be honest with you. Yeah.
But it works
liked
here.
her. Yeah, I liked her, but she seemed very similar to what she was. I love the mother. I believed every bit of her feelings and emotions. The kid was he's just precious. So cutie patootie. So yeah, I'm like, oh, cute blonde boy.
Even right up to the end, right?
Yeah. Oh, he was even cuter at the end. I thought. I was like, that's my boy. You go get him. You go get them. But yeah, so yeah, I really, really liked this one a lot.
Yeah, I did too. I like this quite a bit. And there's a lot of story happening in the subtext. What they're not saying is almost as important as what they are saying. Thinking back on some of the scenes with Dr. Horn and the two nurses, the questions they're asking them sound perfectly fine, but they're like, well, that's still a strange question. But once once it's in context, it makes a whole lot more sense, and their reactions make a whole lot more sense, because they're like, wow, these nurses really don't care for this kid at all. What's going on? And they're so cold and distant to him. But you also kind of feel that he's disarming them too, which was interesting. And now, of course, with the twist, it becomes a little bit more. I really liked the Haley character, Sadie Sink. Even though, you're right. She's not terribly different than her other character, but it's I don't think she's asked to be terribly different than that character. I think she's supposed to be, up until a point, that character, or that type of character. That a little, I would imagine she filmed this before that. I'm not certain.
Oh, really? You think it's that old?
Well, maybe in between, because she was in 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's likely she filmed this after the first, but not, or after the second season, but not before after the second, before the third. Holy cow, I can't get that out. Anywho, Lily Taylor's great. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was effectively creepy. It's like, okay, but I kept having this little nudge, in the back of my head, going, man, this turns out to be just, him hallucinating the entire time, and I'm going to be so pissed.
Mad.
And knowing the history, I was like, okay, yeah, I was a little afraid of where it was going. And so I was elated when it didn't, and it went the other direction, and I was so happy, and I loved it. But I can still see where it might piss a few people off. Maybe not.
But when we get into spoilers, we can explain that further.
Yeah, I guess everybody that's listening pretty much knows there's a twist, and it's a big one. And I like this quite a bit. So as we get into our questions and roundtable here, we are going to jump into spoilers because everything we want to talk about is probably buried up in the spoilers. So let's dive into it. First, though, Dave, I have a question for you because some of the jump scares, if you will, like the hallway scene, which is well done.
Yeah.
At this point, when it was filmed, it may have been kind of fresh, but now we've kind of seen that.
Yeah,
in
agreed.
other films. Did you still like it?
It didn't annoy me. I mean, it's one of those things that I think, in a way you kind of almost expect, and so it didn't really annoy me. I can't really say that I liked them, and I don't know that they really, move the story along in any way, shape, or form. But it's just one of those gut checks, Are you awake? Okay, yeah, we're awake. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, I guess, as genre fans, we've grown to accept. And then when one comes along that really gets us, like in The Haunting of Hill House, where they manage to do the same old thing but still scare the living shit out of you, then you really appreciate it even more.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they went there because they kind of had to, I guess. Because there's a lot of, let's face it, there's a lot of dry time in this. I mean, there really is.
There's a lot of, running around the house, kind of following noises, exploring, right?
Right, exactly. So they had to do something.
Yeah. And at times it's really effective, even if it's old hat, I think. Jeff, what about you? Was there any time that you were questioning how fresh this was? And you watched this one twice, right? You watched this one twice as well? Right. What about you? Is this movie fresh, or has it got a little bit, is there some stale effects and storytelling?
Some of the stuff that you were talking about with the hallways and things, no, I guess I didn't feel like it was stale. I don't know about fresh, but I don't know how many different ways you can show spirits, sneaking around, making noises and stuff. But I thought it was effective because even when they had, like, I think what you're talking about, like the jump scares in the hall, you didn't know what was coming. It looked like it was going to be a ghost or some shadow was looming, and then all of a sudden it's his dad, right? And it
yes,
scares him. And I thought, to me, that's a little bit more legitimate than just going around the corner and boom, or the cat jumping out of the cupboard kind of thing, because there was something there, and it wasn't his dad, but that's what shows up. So I guess not. And I like the stuff down in the basement a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
I still have some questions about. I've got a couple of questions. I don't know if we want to go there yet or not.
Are you talking about?
Well, those kids. What were the
bodies?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What were the past kids? What were they trying to do? Because he asks.
They were the same as him.
Yeah, they were.
No, they were the same. But were they trying to kill him or trying to get him to survive?
They were trying to change their DNA.
They're the ones who dragged him out of the house.
The ghost.
They were trying to save him.
Okay, because Sadie or Haley says, "I think they must have been trying to kill you," and I don't know why she would say that because she should have had the same motive.
No, because I think she's just messing with them.
Well, she was the only one that she only knew. Yeah. She was the only one that knew the secret, so she knew that that the way they were going to do it wasn't going to work.
Oh, okay.
She literally says that you have to do it yourself.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
The ghosties led up to way too much information for them to want him dead.
Right. Crystal.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Speaking of noticing things, seeing things coming, you hinted before the show that you kind of had an idea where this film might go. What clues did you see?
Well, for one, don't you think it's a little odd that for such a religious woman, she keeps telling him to make a wish? Now, so I've worked in churches. I've studied apologetics. I'm basically wishing is the devil's work. That's known universally in religion. That is one of those things. And she always tells him to make a wish. It's very strange. It's very odd for someone who's so religious and prays so much to instill that into their child. Did you not think that was odd at all? Because that was definitely one of them where I was like, okay, that's very, very strange.
Well, I felt it was like a birthday wish. or wishing upon a star.
Yeah, I thought it was just a calming technique. Was all
it's more than that. It's
interesting.
definitely more than that. Yeah, it's because in religion, wishing is bad. Of course, like, Christians shouldn't wish. You should pray to God, and that's it. Wishing is like practically like coveting things as well. If you want to get into there's so much to that. Okay, so we could go dive into like religious aspects. But
well, she prays a lot too, but we never
all the time.
But who does she pray to?
Oh, well, that's a good question, isn't it?
Well, she does have a cross around her neck.
She does. And I think
but I don't think she was praying to God.
So, well, let me tell you too, the dad turns to her and said, "Do you think praying is going to help us with this?"
Right.
At one point, like, so he shuts down her whole religious side of this. And then the whole thing about the affair is part of it. And then there was something that's one of the nurses did. And I was like, oh, yeah. I didn't know that for sure that this is the way it was going to turn out. But I was like, well, he's definitely jacked up. I mean, and honestly, his skin turning red is not natural. I have huge serious allergies since I was a child. I mean, even allergic to saline. So I'm pretty much allergic to my own body. But it's for the red skin, like, it doesn't look like that. I mean, your skin can get red and you can get like hives and stuff. But did you see the way he looked? I mean, I feel like he
kept screaming at burns.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really was like just that was him. Honestly, I feel like that was him changing. Him starting to become more like his father, like the Reds. I think they totally went with a whole red devil type skin and flesh thing. That's what I was thinking. But
and I didn't understand what about the change, what he was going through made it so he couldn't have contact with the contaminants in the water and the air.
He could. They lied to him. That was just stress. He reacted.
So that was all psychosomatic, like?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. If you see when he cuts his little suit when he's outside, he starts freaking out, but he didn't say anything burned. Like at first, it's all like his stress. And that's why I think they keep trying to, they kept telling him, if you get, oh God, what was it? If you get worked up, it's going to be worse or something. I that's not the way they worded it, but yeah.
But they were always trying to get him to calm down. Take deep breaths and blow out the candles. That was her thing, right? To take deep breaths.
Yeah.
Now, did you see the rafters were basically upside down crosses?
Oh, I didn't notice that. No.
Which, of course, in pop culture, that's what it is. There's a little thing here I want to read to you because I didn't know this going in, until I read the notes on this. Right, that upside down cross is actually a sign of Saint Peter, a Christian who requested to be crucified on an upside down cross. St. Peter requested this because he believed he was not worthy to be executed in the same fashion as Jesus Christ.
See, I love that. Isn't that nice? So it's not like as satanic as people think.
But it's become that.
But it's become that because that's what people have decided to make it.
Yeah. Well, I could see how it would originate that because of the comparison, right? Like if you're not worthy.
But here's here's the fucked up part about it. Okay, guys. It's absolutely against God to worship a cross in any way, shape, or form. It's a false god. So get over your crosses. Like it's the truth. That's a freaking false god. It's the golden calf. What are people doing? Wearing crosses around their neck. That is not God. It's just such an I get all worked up about religion. But yeah.
Symbol.
But it is true. It's like
Yeah. Speaking of religion, Dave, you have made it very well known that you do not like possession movies, exorcist movies. Maybe not as terrified of them as our friend, our dear departed Santos Ellinger.
Yes.
He was terrified of The Exorcist.
Yes, he was.
Kept getting every time we get a picture of Reagan McNeil, we'd send her his way, and he would yell at us. But anyway, you back to the story. You don't like them, but this movie flies into that, and you said here that it didn't bother you. How was that transition different for you in this case?
Well, obviously, because I kind of went into it blind, not realizing what it was. I mean, immediately, as soon as you see, a movie like The Exorcist or Bless the Child or anything like that, I mean, they advertise it as that, and you're like, oh shit, freaking devil movie. I don't want to watch a devil movie. But this one kind of snuck in because it doesn't advertise itself as that. I mean, literally, we don't find this out until about the 3/4 point.
If even
I mean,
later,
if you've seen again, I wasn't thinking that. So like all these little, warning signs you're talking about or little hints they drop, I wasn't in me. I just thought he turned red because Jesus, he had this like really horrible reaction to shit. I wasn't even thinking that, he's the son of Satan. But in a way, it really was kind of cool because when they go there, it all kind of comes into focus then, and you're just like, holy shit. And I like that. I like the fact that they surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get a lot of the devil stuff. And they don't really go too much into the whole religion end of things, stuff like that.
Well, actually, it's quite opposite of that, right? Because we don't get a typical exorcism here. Right. Although everything is part of it. Everything has been an exorcism all along.
Right, all along. And, but you didn't know it. And I like that. I like the fact that they dupe me. That doesn't happen too much, especially with people like us that watches stuff 24/7, 365 days a year. It's not often you're surprised. And when it took that turn, I was like, damn, that's impressive. I like that. I like that a lot. And then when you put it all together with the great performances and everything else, then it just makes for an incredibly enjoyable watch.
I think what's interesting is it makes you like the kid and feel for the kid too. So it's odd because when you find out he's the spawn of Satan, well,
you still care,
dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. Like I think that's so fascinating how they were able to.
Yeah, you're mad with him.
Yeah, because
have you
it
never
really
told
is
him
such a
his dad's
betrayal.
the
Yeah.
Yeah. How bad would that suck? You go through your life, find out you're the goddamn son of Satan.
Okay,
Seriously?
like one of the things that was kind of obvious is that last conversation, like his dad had with him. He's like, the way you just love. He's like, you just know it, and it's like, yeah, isn't that all kids though? No, but it's special because of who he is. You think, oh, he's not going to understand love. Well, you know what? I mean, if Satan really does come to this earth in the form of a man, he is going to be nothing but love. That's what you need to be afraid of.
Right, exactly. He's going to come as the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like that. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, it's really pretty late when they finally tell you everything. I mean, you get a little more idea.
Yeah, we'll find out at the same time the boy does. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Gore. We talk about gore all the time.
Gore.
The end of this movie has got its fair share of it.
Yeah.
Is there a smash to the head? There is, right?
Yes.
There is. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But
There is. Yeah.
that's some CGI there.
There was a little bit, and
It was.
and the three, blind mice.
Nuns.
They nuns. They I mean, it was effective and really cool, but it was CGI too. But it worked for me. Did you have a problem, Dave, with it?
No, I didn't. It worked for me as well. Absolutely. Actually, one of my what will be my favorite scene, unless somebody else picks it, is a special effects moment. Although it may or may not include some gore.
All right. Well, there you go. There you go. All right.
Did anybody else? I think, Doc, when I was watching this, I mentioned to you. Did anybody else think that this looked like the same house or the same set that they did from the Hunting of Hill House?
Yes, I did. Yes.
I mean, I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but it looked like they were just, in the Hunting of Hill House, we've seen the house from, if you were standing in front of the house, we've seen it from the left-hand side all the time. This time it looked like we were seeing it from the right-hand side. And then when they were in the lobby part and everything with the staircase and everything else, I'm like, damn, that looks exactly like the Hunting from Hill House. But I have no idea if it was or it wasn't. But
you're talking about the TV show, right?
Yeah, the Netflix show.
All right. Last question before we wrap things up, and this is for you, Jeff. I said earlier this has a 70s ending because the bad guys win, right? Literally. But in this case, we kind of are we on the bad guy's side at the end of this movie?
Yes,
we are. Yes. You guys said that the Haley character, Sadie Sick, was a lot like Max. I didn't get that she was a lot like Max. I thought she all along had this sort of sly, evil grin or smirk or, I know something you don't know kind of look on her face that I thought really separated her from. She didn't just seem like a kid that showed up outside that was talking to him and wanted to be friends. There always seemed like there was something else to her character to me.
I'm glad you mentioned her. Did the other characters see her out there? They did, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've seen her. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because the doctor looked at her, or right at the very end, like they did have a little interaction, and she did say, "Oh, they don't like me much here. They don't like me here."
Do you think they knew who she was?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm sure she probably did that to all the little younglings that were coming in.
Well, she said that. She said that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she probably was taken there herself, honestly, and made it out. Maybe. I mean, I would think that's a new set of doctors. Possible. That's possible too. Hey, there were more than 3 nuns in that photo.
Oh, damn you. All right. Yeah. Fine. Leave me with that.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up. Dave Dreher, you get to go first, so nobody's going to pick your... What is your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene for Eli?
I enjoyed Eli. Really, I'm kind of hoping people watch it before we spoil all over it for them, because part of the pleasure of watching this is getting the rug pulled from beneath you there at the end. So if you're listening to this, too bad we ruined it for you. Isn't that nice?
Oh my!
That's what we do.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, I really like I stated before, the fact that they pulled a fast one on me. And, this was something totally different than what we were thinking it was. It's just an all-around kind of fun movie. I'm actually going to give this a 3.75.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so definitely a must-watch. Maybe even top 10, maybe?
Maybe.
Rah.
And my favorite scene was after we find out that Eli is the son of Satan, and he's like... learning his powers there, and he picks the nurses up, and they're floating around like upside down crosses, swirling around him. I just thought that was a great visual. The way it was lit and the way it was shot, and the whole thing. It was just like it was really cool. I liked it.
So cool.
It certainly helped sell what was happening. And again, I don't know that we've ever seen nurses made in upside down crosses circling around. I think that might be a first. Could
be. So no, definitely seek Eli out. It's a good watch.
It's on Netflix. No excuse not to. Jeff Mohr, sir, what is your final thoughts? Your score, favorite scene, Eli?
Yes, same thing. It's worth a second watch, because I think even if you know the twist, you could kind of follow and see how they set it up, and it's really interesting to me. Even things like whether they're using the word cured or saved, because there's a bunch of times where they kind of switch that around. What is your definition of cured, kind of thing? And then they actually do start saying saved. So I also like this a lot, and I also give it a 3.75. And since I can't pick the upside down flaming nun nurse crosses, I will take the first time that Eli is in the bedroom and the door on the ward, the mirrored door on the wardrobe opens, and we're seeing the room through the mirror as the door opens, and then at some point he sees something else in the mirror. Like there's a person, and then he looks back, and he looks back, and then I think that's when the words Eli go on there on the when they run them all together. You get Eli and Lie and the fog on the mirror.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I really like the way that was shot. It was disorienting with that door opening and seeing the room in the mirror, and seeing the ghost. I guess in the background in the room a couple different times. That was disturbing.
Yes, it was. Crystal, what's your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene for Eli?
So obviously I loved the movie. I definitely think it's a must watch. I think I'm definitely going to watch it again too, because I want to kind of revisit it and have a little bit more time with it and kind of see what all they did. I think it's clever, and it might be even more clever than I anticipated or noticed the first time. So I'm giving it a 4. It's probably definitely going to be in my top 10. And my favorite scene is something a little bit more real. It's it's the second treatment where they're drilling into the head. I don't know. That just that just gets me, man. I'm like, okay, yeah. I don't know. It just, obviously that happens. So kind of makes you go, I don't want brain surgery. No, thank you.
So I got to ask you, Crystal, you're allergic to saline.
Yeah.
You said, are you allergic to holy water?
I don't think so, because I don't think they put salt in it. But right. But I'm allergic to my own body, essentially. Which is kind of shitty. That's why I'm always a little sick. I know you probably just don't realize it, but yeah, I'm on like 5 medications, inhaler, and everything. It's pretty bad. I'm not the girl in the bubble, but I'm not that
power. The either. Power of Christ compels you. All right, sorry.
That's awesome.
I love this movie as well, and it's a shame because I think this is a film that nobody's talking about, right? Because of its history, and I'm curious if it did make it to the theaters, if I would have the same reaction. I'm wondering if streaming is the right release technique for this film.
Like you said, how do you market it?
I know.
What is the best way? Because some people might be put off by the fact that it's, some people do not like religious movies at all. They feel like it's offensive. So if you kind of turn that into that at the end, I don't know, you could turn some people, I think it's done well, but that's me.
Yeah, because you can't market the last 10 minutes because you spoil it. So, oh man, but this was a treasure. I really enjoyed this. I'm giving it a 4 as well. I will likely be talking about this at the end of the year. It's very likely this will be on the rungs. The performances are great. The direction is fantastic. The sets are great. The twist is, if we haven't totally spoiled it for you, is actually quite well realized, and I enjoyed this. So a strong 4 for me. My favorite scene is I'm going to go with the scene that I was hinting at earlier with the hallway scene, but it's actually not when the girl is chasing him down the hallway, but before, when he's looking into the sealed off room, and it's not lit very well, but it's lit well enough that you can see things, right? And most everything's covered with drapes and stuff. It's one of the rooms that he's not supposed to be going into because the entire house is not sealed off, right? But it's sealed. The areas that aren't have like glass walls, right? So you can see through. Weird, but okay.
Weird, but whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things starts to move, and you realize it's like one of those. People that can bend in crazy ways and straightens up, and it's like, oh my God, that is so creepy. I mean, it's used in the trailer, but it's so effective, and I loved his reaction to it. And of course, that leads to him seeing her again, then down at the end of the hallway, and then running. I just thought that was really effective, and it isn't anything that we haven't seen. And Jeff, yours isn't anything we haven't seen either. Maybe not in the exact manner in which it's used, but that's used a number of times in the Conjuring films, right? When she would look in the mirror and turn around, and it may have been done actually better in other films, but it is done
well.
It's done very well. It's done with, what's the word I'm looking for? Expertise, right? It's not workmanlike, because it's better than that. I just really thought this was an impressive film, and I hope that if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it and we haven't totally spoiled it for you, that you will watch it. Or if you've seen it, you'll watch it again, like I think all of us are, other than Jeff, who had already done
that. Yeah, totally. Yep. I'm with you completely.
All right, so that is Eli, currently on Netflix, directed by Ciaran Foy. Cast includes Charlie Shotwell, Lily Taylor, Sadie Sink, Kylie Riley, Yeah, I think we recommended it orally. If you'd like to give us some feedback, tell us what you think of these films and others, or recommend some. Feedback@gruesomemagazine.com is the way to do it, or you can find our Facebook group, or you can reach out at gruesomemagazine.com. If you want to help us out, spreading the word is the way to do it. Share the podcast, tell your friends, review us on iTunes, and let people know that we're out here reviewing streaming horror films at that.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Boy, yeah, boy.
Yeah. Oh, Dave, save me. All right, Dave.
So bad.
Crystal, I want to thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you, sir.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It was fun.
It was good movies. All right, let's see if we can do that again next week. I don't know.
I think we can.
All right. Oh,
wow. Oh, no.
All right.
It's gonna suck.
Jeff
It's
the
gonna suck.
Optimist.
No. Yeah.
I know.
I'm like, no.
Hey, wait a minute. Zach killed it, and what was the other one? Anyway, go ahead. Don't mind me.
Take the air out of the balloon. Go ahead. All right. With that, let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh my God, Jeff, you're killing me. You're like totally reading something or whatever, and it's like, oh no, never mind. We good.
Gruesome Magazine.